Imagine being a rabbit in the desert and you're doing everything you can to get food and all that. And all the while you see this shadow circling from above, right? And you look up and there's that hawk, right? Scrutinizing your every move, waiting for that time to pounce. Have you felt like that at work with your boss and your boss is the hawk, where they are, basically saying, don't you even breathe without asking me? And that is the type of micromanager, a boss hawk that constantly checks on you before you can make a move. Maybe even, hey, you're about to send an email and nope, you got to put it in drafts and let them approve it before they hit send. They scrutinize every little detail. And this is more about them than it is you. Now, I will say there's a caveat to that. If that didn't start out this way with your boss and suddenly they have become that person where they're just scrutinizing everything, it could be because you've had some missteps in the past and that's kind of eroded some trust they have in you, which has informed them over-indexing on really tightening down everything and making sure that they scrutinize every step with you. So if that's you, you need to rebuild that trust with them. So how do you do that, right? Or even if you don't need to rebuild trust with them, you can still do some counter programming or, do some stuff that counterbalances their need to scrutinize everything. And one of those things is over communicating. Proactively send updates. Hey, this is where I am on this. All of that stuff. Flood them with information that they eventually will stop micromanaging you, or it will just burn them out and they will just get frustrated and back off. So you can combat this type of micromanager. It just is going to take some time and effort. So my name's Rob. Do you ever feel like your boss is micromanaging you to a point of misery? Do you feel like they just watch and scrutinize every move? Do they schedule meetings to talk about the meeting and then the post meeting to talk about the meeting you just had? That's a true story. I had a boss like that. I still have PTSD from it. Let's talk about the 10 different types today of micromanaging bosses and how to survive them without losing your mind or your job. Okay, this next one I'm going to talk about is the control freak micromanager. And they're always like, I need to double check that, right? And usually this is rooted in their own fear and their own insecurity. So they don't trust your work, even after repeated success should say to them, Bill does a great job and I don't have to think about what his work quality, it's always an A+, but yet they still focus on that because again, they're so fearful. Maybe they're a narcissist and they just have to have the final say, right? Even when it's unnecessary. And then they just end up making you feel like you're not in control, which is super demotivating. You don't want to put any extra effort forward and you're not getting developed into new skills that will inform an upward career progression for you. So how do you actually fix this one, right? First of all, stay calm. Don't let it get to you. Vent to your friends, just the close ones, not anybody who will listen, because that could be another problem you're creating for yourself. But here's the key to it. You have to subtly inform some decisions. And it is a bit of an art and a science, but you have to plant some seeds such that they think they're still in charge and that it was their idea when it was in fact yours. Now, some people don't have the energy for this and are just going to bail, and I totally get it. But if you do want to have this dance with this type of boss, this is what you're going to have to do, is make them think that they're in charge when probably they're not. All right, the next one, I feel like I'm being seen in my own video today because I've dealt with this person too. And this type of micromanager is the endless checker. Did you update the last update? And it's just constantly this need for more information and more updates, that the updates actually overshadow the actual project at hand. And the job then shifts to all you're doing is updating spreadsheets and everything. So how do you balance this, right? Because again, I think this is rooted in somebody who wants to control everything and really rooted in their own fear and insecurity, which is most of the behaviors we're going to talk about today. But the best thing you can do is anchor everything you do to a tracker that you and your boss have aligned on, right? So let's just call it a project, right? You put together a project tracker with milestones and all the good stuff, right? So you can always refer back to that. Hey, you're asking for another update. It's in the tracker we agreed upon. Do we need to revisit that so you can feel more in control or on top of things, right? So always make it a bit of a dance and I don't want to say a negotiation, but you may have to go back and kind of reset expectations with them because likely they forgot about the conversation you had at the beginning of a project, right? They're sitting there going, well, I haven't heard an update today and it's only, it's been 1 day since we last checked in and I need more information. Okay, go look at the tracker. I don't know why this is so hard, but yet they will constantly ask that and it gets to the point where it's maddening. And again, all these behaviors become very demotivating for the employee to the point where it's like, I didn't go to college to learn how to update a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation just to suit your needs because you're insecure. Okay, the next one is, I think I've dealt with this a few times, but it is, I don't think it's a diabolical behavior, maybe on its face. It could be, but it's the task interrupter, right? We align on what the goals are, what the projects are, or whatever's at hand. Then midstream, they have an epiphany and they want you to take a hard right turn or actually go backwards and start from scratch because they had this great idea. They loved redesigning projects mid-task. And here's the thing, again, I think it's rooted in insecurity that they're not leading through people. They feel like they have to contribute to add value. The way of doing that is kind of constantly rejiggering things so they can put their stamp on it and look at their bosses and say, see what I did? Instead of saying, hey, check out what my team did. I'm really proud of them. That last part's a good leader. So how do you counterbalance this type of behavior, right? Every time they come at you with a redesign, okay, hey, I hear what you're saying and I understand why. What do we have to reprioritize this on my plate to add this additional work into? So something is going to have to come off the priority category, and so this can take its place. What is that going to be? And you're going to force them to help you reprioritize. Now, some managers are just going to say, figure it out. Another sign of a bad manager, and it's probably time for you to look for another job. But hopefully a manager would actually engage in that conversation and say, okay, these projects can be deprioritized. Here's the new timeline with those, but I really want you to focus on this one that we're actually, redesigning, rejiggering, or whatever you want to call it. That's a decent scenario to have because managers do all the time have these high priority things that land on their desk and they've got to get it done. So they should be having a conversation to reset expectations on other priorities to accommodate this new one that has popped up out of the blue. I referred to this one before, and my friend Brandy out there, I think she would laugh if she heard me say this. And if you are Brandy, hi. But this is the meeting lunatic, the meeting fanatic. Let's meet to discuss this meeting we're going to have, and then we're going to meet after it to have a post-mortem of the meeting, and all of the meetings around the original meeting have meetings again just to make sure everything's buttoned up so they can have such control of it. It is maddening. It's a waste of time, quite frankly, to meet and meet and meet and meet and meet. It gets to the point, and I'm sure if this is happening to you, you feel this way. You see a meeting invite pop up on your calendar, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, not with another meeting on the same topic. Can't we look at the tracker? Can't we look at I spit, I'm sorry. Can't we look at the shared PowerPoint presentation that everybody has access to make sure we're all on the same page? There's a lot of other ways to do this to make your boss feel like they're in control. If this is happening to you, you should push for an agenda if there isn't one on these meetings. Set some time limits. Can we make it 15 minutes and get in and get out so we're not wasting everybody's day? So this one I, again, alluded to before, where it's the Nitpicker micromanager, right? Where they're like, hey, this font here on this line is 0.02 off of the font above it. Okay. Only you were going to see that, boss, but okay, I'll figure that out. But they're obsessed with controlling these micro details that really don't affect anything, because like that example I gave to you in the beginning of this video where my boss was talking about the sequence of 2 paragraphs in an email. By the way, nobody's going to read it. That was just maddening to me and just such a time suck and a waste of time and quite frankly intelligence to go over that. If that's your type of boss, maybe having a separate meeting, and I know I just talked about having additional meetings, but meet with them and say, hey, I appreciate your attention to detail, so let's go over, let's just put together a one-pager about, hey, this is how things should be written, fonts or point styles or whatever it is, just so you're always aligned. And that actually will build trust, right? Because you're setting expectations, you're aligning on what's expected from each other, and then maybe that nitpicking will stop over time. This next one, I think, is just, it's such a dick move. I'm just gonna say it, from your boss, and that's the idea thief, right? This is a boss who micromanages to the degree that they actually think this was all their idea, when in fact it was a team effort, and then they don't give credit to the team, they take the credit on themselves. So again, this is rooted in wild insecurity and in fear that they're not doing their job at the end of the day. So they want to take that credit to say, see what I did, when in fact they should say, hey, see what my team did, because really their leadership is what is under scrutiny from the powers above them, not the fact that they got this one detailed project out, right? That's why you have a team manager. It's not about doing the work, it's about empowering the others to do work. So how do you combat this manager, right? So to make sure that they are giving you the credit, right? So it's document everything, right? Us HR people, we love documentation, but you might also use email trail. You had a conversation with them, then you follow up, hey, per our conversation, et cetera, et cetera. You may start CCing other people just to say, you know what, so other people actually know the work that you're contributing. I would say do that with care, though. Don't do that en masse, because that could come out to bite you in the ass. And then own your ideas, right? So if this does happen, have a conversation with your boss saying, hey, it would have been great if the team got recognition for that project to the higher ups or whatever it is. And hopefully they're receptive to that, and this was just a blind spot for them. Bosses who are a narcissist probably don't care about the team, and they only care about what's in it for them and how they look. And if that's the case, if that's the person you're dealing with, then I think you know what I'm gonna say. It's time to look for another job, or hunker down, pray for daylight, and wait for that next opportunity to come, because they may not be able to change. This one is a little bit sneaky, but it basically is somebody who's trust phobic, right? They don't extend trust. Sorry, I have a little helper here. Do you guys want to see? Here's my little helper. He's not trusting me to do a good job this video today. Okay, buddy, go on. The trust phobic leader is the one that just is disguised as helping, but it's constant check-ins. Hey, how are we doing? What's the progress today? How can I help? They don't trust you to do a good job, or they don't trust you to do the project or whatever the task is at hand in their way, not your way. A good leader is going to say, you know what? You know what needs to get done, and I trust you to get it done in a way that is true to you. And that's a sign of a good leader. But if you do have somebody who doesn't extend trust quickly, there are some ways to build trust with that leader. And one is, first of all, signal what you're going to do. If you tell them, hey, we're aligning, this is what I'm going to do, then you're going to actually do it, right, on the back end. And then you're going to follow up and say, hey, see what I did? Because then you're building trust, you're building consistency. And over time, that should hopefully reduce the amount of check-ins. Oh, I'm just trying to help, all of that type of nonsense that just gets in your way. The next one is, and I've referred to this several times throughout this conversation, and the next one is the overly insecure boss, right? The ones that say, don't make me look bad. And if they only could recognize that if they empowered their team, that's going to be the headline, that Jill has a great team that she empowers every day. And so Jill's working from the behind the scenes to support the team. You know, the insecure bosses are constantly in everybody's space, you know, checking and doing all the things we've been talking about. It's an effort to protect their own image, not to make sure that the work gets done. It's all about them. So how do you do with this? You know, this is the one you got to have to play into it. If you identify your boss as this person, you got to stroke their ego a bit. Oh, thank you so much for your help. I really couldn't have done it without you. Try to not make it as sarcastic as I just said it. Try to make it as authentic as possible, but you may have to actually reassure them. Frankly, they should be the ones reassuring you. It is what it is in this situation. situation. Reassure them, manage them with kindness. Hopefully that will lift them up a bit so they're not so much insecure, and that they'll be a better leader for it. The next one, again, it's another variation of what we've been talking about from a micromanaging standpoint, but this is the Credit Hound. This is the one that always takes the credit and, always takes the win, never publicly acknowledges the rest of the team. They will also not own any blame. So they will not take accountability for what goes wrong, which a good leader should, but they will deflect it. Oh, well, so-and-so over here couldn't do the job, so that's why this project failed or whatever it is. It's all about them in this situation, and it undermines morale on the team. I'm preaching to the choir. If you feel like you're working for somebody like this, you know that the team morale is not good because of this individual. How do you combat this? I would say this is an art and a science, and you have to know when to lean into this. But you could publicly praise the rest of the team for getting something done before, so you're in effect beating your boss to the punch before they can kind of take the praise for themselves. That could backfire. So you have to really think about how you're going to play that hand. And maybe it's a subtle way, like you send an email out, hey, the team worked really great on this, and you kind of stroke your boss's ego and say, we couldn't have done it without Julie or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. But again, beat them to the punch might be a good way to counteract this type of boss that doesn't give credit to the team, just takes the credit for themselves. All right, so at the end of the day, just to wrap all this up with a bow, a strong leader accepts blame and gives credit, whereas a weak leader and an insecure leader gives the blame and takes the credit. So think about that. And if you enjoy content like this, if you found this helpful, first of all, I would love if you could like and subscribe to my channel. It would really help me out, and I'd consider it an honor. But the second is, if you've identified any of the leaders that we've talked about today, you've got to really take an assessment. Are they going to change? Are they going to accept feedback? And if the answer is no, maybe, you could say, I can't help you anymore. I'm only going to help me. Don't say that out loud, but you might say that in your head and then go look for another job within or outside the organization. At the end of the day, whatever the situation you're in, I hope you are well. I know you can handle it. And I hope this has been helpful to help you navigate these types of individuals. And until next time, my name's Rob, and take care. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.